The expecting mind often comes disguised as something. Just like doubt comes disguised as wisdom. Expectation can come disguised as aspiration. We think, I just have an aspiration for my meditation to develop. It's very tricky. Because expectation and aspiration are two very different qualities of mind. For example, we can be practicing the very beautiful aspiration of bodhicitta, that aspiration that our lives and our practice be for the awakening, be for the benefit of all beings. So that's a beautiful and noble aspiration. And at the same time, we can realize that that aspiration is not fulfilled by expecting. It's not fulfilled by craving. It's fulfilled by letting go into the wisdom mind of awareness. That aspiration and the force of expectation are two very different things. I've also noticed in my practice how expectation for anything, in practice, in meditation, so easily leads to the comparing mind. We can get into this competitive sitting, as if it's kind of a race for some finish line. There's a big difference between being inspired by other people's practice and getting caught up in either self-judgment or pride about our own practice relative to other people's practice. And I went through this in a big way. The first retreat I sat with Sayadaw U Pandita. It was in 1984 at IMS. It was a 3-month retreat, very intensive. We were just sleeping 4 hours a night, seeing him 6 times a week. It was very pressured. And at a certain point, I just had this idea of my fellow yogis, and some of them seemed to be doing so well, and I was going through so many struggles in my mind. So there was just a lot of self-judgment, about myself, about my practice, and it was suffering. It was really suffering. It was springtime in Barre at that time. And one day I went out, and just outside the main building, there was just along the side of a walkway, the flowers were just starting to come up. The tulips were coming up. There was a tremendous lesson in looking at the tulips, because some had come up and had fully opened, blossomed and opened. Some had come up, and the flower was there, but it's still closed. Some had come up and were just kind of poking through the ground. And I realized our practice is just like that. They develop, they grow each at their own rate, their own speed, according to their own conditions. Those flowers were not racing to see who could bloom first. It was amazing. Just by looking at those flowers, it's I could just let go of all that comparing mind and settle into letting my own practice unfold, letting it blossom in its own time. So it's helpful to see this comparing mind and how it plays out in our practice, but also in our daily lives. When these desires are unnoticed, whether it's the desire, the strong obsessive desire for sense pleasures, or just, minor moments of the wanting mind, or comparing or expectation, when they're unnoticed, just like the other hindrances of doubt and aversion, they hinder concentration and obscure the natural wisdom of our mind. So we need to notice them. We need to become aware. In addition, and somewhat ironically, and this is something I think we should really pay attention to. Our desires don't even deliver on their promise of happiness. I mean, if they delivered, it would be one thing. But they don't. We believe that experiencing sense pleasures, whatever our own desires are, will bring us happiness because of the pleasant feelings that come along with them. And they do for a time. But as we all know, the problem is that these pleasant feelings are very impermanent. And so they're continually disappearing and changing. We go after another, and another, and another, and another, and this becomes our life. It's like trying to quench one's thirst by drinking salt water. We just get thirstier. How many sense pleasures have you enjoyed in your life? Countless. Right? Beyond number. Yet we never seem to come to a sense of completion. They do not bring fulfillment. And we all know this. Even though we still get caught up in desire and craving, we know pretty deeply that they don't really deliver, or you wouldn't be here. This is not where people would come like a silent retreat to be on vacation. So we all know, that desire is not the route to fulfillment. But we forget. Now this doesn't mean that we should never enjoy ourselves or not experience the pleasantness of different sense contact. It's just to understand the transitory, very impermanent nature of this enjoyment. And really to consider how much of our lives and how much of our energies do we want to invest in the endless pursuit of them. So it's not about not enjoying it, but where are we putting our energies? What are we dedicating our lives to? Dharma practice opens our understanding to possibilities of much greater happiness in our lives. So this is the first arena of craving, the desire for sense pleasures, something we need to explore, to understand, to really look at in our lives. The second kind of craving goes even deeper. And this is the basic urge or desire to be. It's called the craving for becoming. It's the desire for renewed existence, particularly in pleasant circumstances. Now, in traditional Buddhist understanding, it refers to desire for rebirth in some pleasant realm. Now, we may or may not believe in rebirth, even though it is a very classical part of the teachings. It's right there in the teachings. And Munindra, he would often regale us with stories of the heaven realms, the Deva worlds. And I loved hearing about it. Tell me more. But a lot of people in our group did not believe, had a kind of Western skepticism about it. It's not part of our understanding. So Munindra would always say, you don't have to believe this. It's true, but you don't have to believe it. So you don't have to believe it, and I don't know whether it's true. But for us, there are more immediate and direct experiences of this craving for becoming. We can leave rebirth aside. We can see this craving for becoming every time we get lost in the planning mind. Just imagining ourselves in some future situation. Notice how often in the day, or just think back to today, how often the mind is lost in the mind creation of some future self. More than once or twice. I'll do this, I'll go there, we just project in our minds. We're not there. In our minds, there's this desire, the craving for becoming. The Buddha gave some very specific and also challenging instructions in this regard. And I just love so much about the Buddha's teachings is it's so direct and so to the point and challenging of our ordinary way of viewing things. So this is what he says. Not reviving the past. Not hoping to be in the future. Instead, with each arising state, not craving after past experience, not setting one's heart on future ones, not bound up with desire and craving. So just imagine what it would be like to practice living like that. This is not just some kind of theoretical thing. The Buddha is saying, this is the instruction for freeing the heart. So what would it be like to actually practice doing that? Not reviving the past, not setting one's heart on future experiences. And almost all of our lives are spent in those two activities. Reviving the past, looking forward to the future. What would it be like to just settle back, instead with insight, see each arising state, not bound up with desire and craving? That's a challenging practice. So we can notice what this is like for short moments. Instead of thinking, oh, this is some unattainable goal, it sounds good and maybe someday. No, we can practice it for short moments many times. And we begin to experience for ourselves what is the heart and mind like in those moments free of craving. We pay attention. On a more momentary level, we can see this craving for becoming just in the unfolding process itself. Have you noticed how often we practice leaning into the next moment, as if somehow the next moment of experience, the next breath, the next sensation, the next thought, will resolve everything? As if somehow the next one will bring us what we're looking for. The next one is not going to do it any more than this one. We can come to completion in this moment, and that leaning forward is just this craving for becoming. It's the desire for becoming. I call this the in order to mind. We can see this, we're watching something in order for something to happen. How often are we in this mind state when we're feeling painful sensation? Watching it, aware of it, in order for it to go away. That leaning forward. Or we're with some emotion. Maybe there's some strong emotion arising. And we're with it in order to open further. We have some agenda. That's craving for becoming. We want something else to be happening. And we're not seeing experiences as simply empty appearances arising and passing away in the moment. We forget that liberation is not about holding on, it's not about getting, it's not about becoming. It's not about getting something or having some new experience. It's about not holding on, not craving, not clinging.